know you've just written a book, and that book you did the launch party last week, and you're what, top in 7 categories, and like 2 of them you're neck and neck with Seth Godin, which is,
call it neck and neck. I'm close.
well, but still,
I'm on the same screen.
Well, we're bragging where we should.
Yes.
Okay,
on the same sentence is great.
On the same screen with Seth Godin, all the same. I mean, that's a lot of stuff to be very proud of. And like your workbook, sometimes you get a workbook that goes along with the book and it's like 4 pages and 3 of them are pictures. And yours is what, like 200 plus pages?
Yes.
You actually get to dig in and work on this, which is phenomenal. But writing a book can be very taxing on self-empathy. And how is this? Is this enough? Am I enough? Am I giving them the right information? Am I going to connect with people? This is information I know will help them. Am I getting it out in a way that's connecting? Can you talk a little bit about your process and how you were actually able to pull this off? Because it's never as simple as, well, I'm going to write a book.
Yeah. So one of the things that I would say is that writing a book is all about getting a certain set of ideas from your head where they reside to someone else's head where they will reside and take on their own life, right? So that transmission is not something that is just done through words and sentences we put together, although that's what a book is. What I want to call attention to is that there are principles of instructional design that are especially studied to facilitate that transmission, and following the principles of instructional design to write a book. Now, not a nonfiction or novel, but like a nonfiction book where you are transmitting ideas. I would highly recommend anybody who wants to do that to look at instructional design. And in my book, I recommend the book by my friend Rebecca, The Course Design Formula. It is written and created, and she teaches it for course creation, but we have discovered together that it's an amazing tool for book writing, nonfiction book writing. And I keep telling her, create a course for that. So we'll see. So that's the first thing, is make sure that the outline of your book will follow instructional design principles so that in the end, it is like a knife through butter. The other thing that I did that I think helped me tremendously was to, as I was developing the ideas in the chapters, I was writing the book, and then I would write those ideas up as a LinkedIn newsletter or an article or post, right? But since it's a book, it's a long form, so newsletter was a better vehicle for that. But I shared my ideas. And when you're writing a book, you're sharing your ideas, but you know that it's going to be a whole body of work, and it's going to take time before it goes into the heads of anybody, right? But when you're posting it on LinkedIn, there's this immediacy of time and of people who will be reading it right away. And so for me anyway, what I found is that suddenly changed the whole dynamic of how I was interacting with my ideas. And it somehow made me write them in a bit of a different way. And so I would go through that process. Then I would get all the feedback. And then once I had really played around, like with Play-Doh, with these ideas and the feedback and the discussions, and then went back to the book, I was like, no, now I need to rewrite it a little bit differently. So it sounds like a very protracted process. And sure enough, it took time. But I think having this energy with the reader as I was going really gave depth to the book, and it gave me a way to really be very engaged with it rather than be in my cave,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I find this fascinating because there's as many ways to approach this as there are authors.
Yeah.
Did you find that writing your book at all took a greater connection to yourself, or did you find that the book came out of a connection with yourself, or both?
Oh my God, what a fantastic question. Because the first part of your question, I was like, yes. And then the second part, I'm like, yes. But then you're like, what about, yeah. So, yes, overall is the average answer. But no, yes, that was what I enjoyed. One of the things I enjoyed the most about the book was just this whole process of going deeper into my own thoughts. It sounds a bit self-centered, and I have to admit it was very focused. But developing, like, we all have ideas, but going through the process of really parsing them out and going through the process of having to explain them, and then going back and saying, well, yeah, but actually I need to differentiate between these two concepts, and then split it up again. And, it's like a bit of hair splitting, but that whole intellectual exercise I found extremely satisfying, very rewarding, very, pleasing, pleasureful. I don't know what word to use, but, I really enjoyed it, is bottom line. And to answer your question, I think it really helped me to get much closer in touch with who I am and what it is I want to say. And in fact, I started my whole process writing a book about LinkedIn. And then I realized, nah, I found myself just doing a how-to, click here and write a thing of this many words. And then it was like very tactical. And I was like, no, I need to write something much deeper. So I set that as first. I tried to change it, but then I was like, no, this is no. So I set it aside and started off again. And I think that's when I started writing about marketing, which is much broader. And some people tell me it's not about marketing. It's even broader than that. It's deeper than that, whatever. But that's when I really was able to, it changed my identity, I think, at that point.
Wow. I mention it because in creating that connection with yourself, because empathy isn't about feeling, it's about connection, right? Mm-hmm. Connection and understanding. To create a greater connection and understanding with yourself through your writing, through your thoughts, through what you did, number one is phenomenal, like you were talking about, but number two takes a lot of courage, because sometimes you never really know what's going to float to the surface. You're bringing all these thoughts in, and you're trying to expand this and do it in a way that's going to connect with other people through the connection with yourself. And it's a process. It really is.
Yes. Yeah. And I have to say, there were times where I was just surprised that my writing was almost like I would have an idea and say, okay, this is what I'm writing about. And I think that's the idea. And then I would start writing it. And then I would find myself with something much longer written that had more ideas in it than I knew I was going to write when I started. It sounds crazy, but it was almost writing itself. So I would have not a prompt, the words now overused with ChatGPT, but like I'd start with an idea, and then it grew, and the way to express it just came to me, and then I would test it with the LinkedIn. So it was really fun, I have to say.
Cool.
And connection is everything that I'm about. That's what I preach. That's the the soapbox I get on. And so having that connection with the reader was so important for me. And that's why when I got my first reviews, I had tears in my eyes, because that connection had become real, right? So there was a real person on the other end I was really connecting with. So